reason to doubt him. But that was not enough for me to declare that Kelby Smith was lying. So I called my friend back, and I made a request of him. I said, I have to ask you to do something, and I realize I have no right to ask you. And I also realize it's none of my business, because I am a state-level Chief Justice, and under normal circumstances, I would never and have never overstepped the lines of my office. And this is national, and I am state. But I've been dragged into this, and so I have to ask you, as long as the others agree, all four of you, if I can hear the recording of that call that night. Remember, he was the one running the call board, so he had access to it. He said he thought I should hear it. I called all three of the other gentlemen back and asked them. They all said I should hear it. So my friend gave me access to the recording. I listened to it, and what I heard on that call was the truth. What had happened was that Kelby Smith and his media team were insisting on being admitted into the Presidential Advisory Board. Up to that point, they were not. The Presidential Advisory Board did not feel that it was proper for them to be part of that advisory board. A fight ensued on the call. However, the two gentlemen from Arizona and the one in New York were complete gentlemen. They were not rude. They were not aggressive. They were not argumentative in any way. They simply tried to state their opinions in a very polite manner. The ones who were completely out of control on that call were C.W. Wright, Jesus Barrios, and a couple of others, and I don't remember their names. Also, one of the men who had written a very, very concerned letter after that Presidential Advisory Board to the others involved in saying that he was shocked at the behavior on that call, etc., was a man who is still deeply involved in RuSA and knows to this day that I am telling the absolute truth about what took place on that call. And that's Robert Zuluaga. Now, I have not shared that letter. I do still have it. I haven't decided yet whether I will put it up on the website or not. I would like to give him a chance to admit what happened that night on that call all this time later, instead of letting me, my senator, two innocent men in Arizona and one in New York, take the fall for it. The other thing I know for an absolute fact is that Kelby Smith not only was lying on that call, someone else put him up to it, because he wasn't on the presidential call. They never let him in. The whole fight was about the fact that he wasn't let in. So, moving on. Shortly after the conversation I had with Nathan Peachy about that NDA, others with the same concerns began contacting me as a result of my blog being linked to the RuSA site. They'd tried to speak up about the issues via emails, but were either ignored or insulted for asking the questions. So they tried on national calls, but were blocked from speaking. And I'll go back and add emails to the file as I find them. There were a lot of emails floating back and forth between me and concerned individuals, and they're still in my email box. I can go back and find them, and I will have them uploaded as I locate them. It became clear to all concerned that there was a power grab and a secret agenda from the top, and especially in regard to communication among the people of the various states. At first, it was relatively few individuals, and we tried to discuss the problems via Skype. But very quickly, there were too many, and Skype was not a good venue for group calls at that size. I was asked and agreed to host an open conference call where any of the people of the various states with issues and concerns could discuss them among their peers for the purpose of coming up with viable solutions. Within hours, I got another call from Nathan Peachy. He insisted that I convince all these people to just shut up and go along with the program for the sake of unity. I refused, of course, and I went ahead with the conference call that Saturday. It started out with people from 7 states, and the discussion went very well with some good solid suggestions on how to solve the problems. Now, I wasn't running the call board back then. Good guy out of Arizona let us use his call board, and he was running the call board. They asked me to repeat the call the next day, and I did. And on that day, there were various people from 17 states, if I recall correctly. The recording of that call is also in the file that will be available on the website. It was decided that a proposal solution would be brought to the floor on the next national call. However, on that next national call, every single person who attempted to speak up and bring that solution to the floor, who had attended those conferences, were barred from speaking. My own fellow Georgian elected officials were on that button the second it was open for questions to raise their hands, and they continued all night long. This created a lot of anger, and it intensified the unrest among the states. At that point, another official from a western state and I called Turner to discuss the issues and explain the concerns personally. During a very long call, we stressed the importance of people serving in public positions being able to communicate, the fact that no database should ever be kept on an internet site and why. And at the end of the call, Turner decided he would instruct Kelby and CW to give me the database, and I would then send out contact information to the proper individuals in each separate body. At no time did I ever ask for that database, and in fact, and my other friend on the call will attest to this, I stated I did not want it, but he said he trusted me and wanted me to do it. Remember, I was not the only one on that call. The next day, I got several phone calls from irate individuals telling me that Kelby was trashing me, my fellow reps in my state, on R.J. Hender's radio show, claiming we were trying to overthrow Turner's presidency and take over the government. Meanwhile, instead of sending the database, C.W. Wright sent out a poll to all the states, wanting them to vote as to whether they wanted me to have the database, in which he deliberately misled the people into thinking I was doing something nefarious. Naturally, that led to my second call to Turner. He claimed he was outraged. He claimed he'd told them not to say one word, but to send me the database and he would take care of it. He announced then that he had fired Kelby. On the next day, on the day of the next national call, I got a call during the day from CW, who went on and on and on about how sorry he was for his part in what had happened, and that he realized I'd not been trying to do anything to stir up trouble, but I'd actually been trying to bring solution and unity. That night, Turner publicly apologized to me on the national call, and the rest of my state and elected officials. Kelby sent a recorded apology, not for what he had done, but how he had done it. CW claimed he had nothing to apologize for. No apology was given in writing for the outright nasty emails Turner had sent to one of our senators and one of our representatives during the whole fiasco. Those I will also share when I dig them out. In the end, they never sent the database, but someone else did, anonymously. I now know who that was, but we'll just call him George. The database was a pathetic mess. It took 2 days on the phone to clean it up because of wrong emails, phone numbers, names, and whole states with elected officials listed who were either not part of RuSA at all or not even aware they'd been elected. They had stayed with RAP when the split happened. It was during my attempt to clean up the database that one state told me how Nathan Peachy had hoodwinked some of their people into giving them money they could ill afford, several $1,000s, to put into a private deal with an uncle he supposedly had in Greece, where he promised them massive returns on their money. He claimed he was putting it into one of the Tier 1 trades. Well, they had no way of knowing that that type of trade he was referring to has a minimum investor amount of $500 million just to get into the game. I know that because of the job I do in the real world. They wanted to know how they could get their money back. I told them I was very sorry for them, but there wasn't a tinker's chance in hell they were ever going to see any of that money again. And I explained to them why you had to have been lying, because a few $1,000s wouldn't get you anywhere near a deal like that. None of them had ever even known they were listed as elected officials, and they'd been screaming at me via email to get them off that crazy man's database. That's how I ended up even speaking to them in the first place. Because of the database, I was able to give Congress a way to convene under their own power. Turner had continually been browbeating them over getting the job done, etc., on every call, saying, I can't do anything, I can't get the funding until Congress gets the job done. We need to do this and this and this, and they're not getting it done. But remember, they weren't allowed to know each other. They weren't allowed to run their own Congress session. It all had to be done by the media team, so only selected individuals could even speak. Well, what happened from there was that as a result of the 2 conference calls that I had had and the people that came together on those conference calls, we were able to set up a way for Congress to convene under its own power, with its own call board. So, we did that. I helped them do it. I had the database. I went through and I divided it out to lists of senators, representatives, governors, ambassadors, justices, jury foremen, etc. I shared those databases with the proper bodies, because I had given my word to Turner that I would never share that database in its entirety with anyone outside the Republic or anyone that should not have it. I have to this day kept my word on that one. However, I did recently share it with some individuals being attacked within RuSA, because it really belongs to them. But back then, I promised the Senate and the House, Congress as a whole, that I would do them the service of sending out their call information. When they were going to convene the Senate, I would send out their call information to all of the senators. When they were going to convene the House, I would send out the call information to the representatives. I didn't have the host codes. I just had the call information, the number to dial, and the PIN number. On the night of the Senate call, they held an election for Senate Pro Tem. I was not on the call. Like I said before, I was a state-level justice. I had no business interfering in the legislative level. Earlier that day, Nathan Peachy had called me, and the only thing I could figure after the call was that he was trying to trap me into admitting something that wasn't true. He said, "Let me get this straight. You're trying to convene Congress so that you can kick out Tim Turner, elect another president, and take over Congress, aren't you?